Good morning, my dudes, and welcome to the first video of this channel. Said I was going to do it. You guys on Twitter encouraged me. Thank you to all of you who, basically just said, hey, do it. I appreciate it. I've had YouTube channels in the past. Some of them, I would say, kind of successful. Others, not so much. But, oh well, never done one about hockey before, so let's go. For those of you who follow me on Twitter, you already know who I am, what I do. For those of you who just stumbled upon this video or are reading it or not reading it, you don't read videos, you watch videos. For those of you who are watching this, who don't follow me on Twitter, my name is Matthew. I am currently the co-site expert for a Carolina Hurricanes page called Cardiac Cane. Myself and my fellow co-site expert Omar, I've been co-site expert / editor for a few months now. Been writing for them for a few months before under Omar, who is the other co-site expert / editor. What we do, just basically write about the Hurricanes, opinion pieces, news, whatever. So I'll post the link to that in the description if you guys want to check it out. It's pretty solid, platform, if I do say so myself. Either way, this isn't really going to be related to that. This is just going to be, this channel specifically is going to be about hockey, not just the Hurricanes, even though they're my favorite team. It's going to be about hockey in general, so all around the hockey world. So NHL, ECHL, AHL, SPHL if we need to, KHL. We're going to talk about everything hockey, all teams, all players. I personally am going to be as objective as possible. I'm going to try to leave as much opinion out of this as I can, just because I don't want to be polarizing. I don't want to be divisive. Hockey is fun. It should be enjoyed by everybody. Trash talk is healthy here and there, but on the whole, I want to be a very objective source where people can go to hear me talk about hockey and stuff. I don't know. I just think it's fun to be inclusive. I think it's a great way to build a community, and I don't know, just be nice to people. Sometimes people need to experience positivity, and that's what I'm here for. So without further ado, first video of this channel, we're going to talk about Jake Gardiner, and Carolina Hurricanes signed him. Great signing, if I do say so myself. Very unexpected, to say the least. So the reason why I talked about the writing thing is back in July, I wrote an article called The Case for Acquiring Jake Gardiner, and I'll post the link down in the description if you guys want to read it. Long story short, I suggested trading Justin Falk on a 1-for-1 deal to Toronto for Jake Gardiner. It was, I don't want to say divisive, but people had opinions about it, all of which I appreciate and all of which I love. It helps me be better at what I do. It helps me talk to people and just form relationships with people. I think that's really fun. On the whole, though, it was kind of received, I would say, relatively well. Not very many people, or at least Hurricanes fans that I talked to about it, were familiar with Jake Gardiner, other than what they've seen when the Hurricanes played them, or like if he was on a highlight video, or if he was on like a, I don't know, feature piece somewhere. And we're going to get into it a bit later, but Toronto fans have a lot of strong feelings about this. And they seem to be the only ones with the strongest negative feelings, and I think I know why, but we'll get into that in a minute. But personally, I think Hurricane signing Jake Gardiner was a phenomenal move. Unfortunately, what this means for the Hurricanes is seemingly one of the defensemen are going to be on the move. Right now, the Hurricanes are 1.5-ish million over the cap, which isn't such a big deal because we have players like Brian Gibbons that can be moved down, freeing up a little bit of cap space. I believe there are one or two others that could be moved that would bring us just a smidge below the cap, but it's always good to have wiggle room. And as of right now, the Carolina Hurricanes have the second most expensive payroll, roster payroll in the league, behind none other than the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the Toronto Maple Leafs, I know they have their whole David Clarkson and Nathan Horton weird cap sorcery that we're not even going to talk about right now in this video. But it's not the end of the world. I personally, and this is going to be divisive because the player I'm about to talk about is relatively divisive for good reasons. I personally think Justin Falk is the one that's going to get moved. It just adds up. From what I understand, the Hurricanes met with Justin Falk in Vancouver. I'm not sure if before, during, or after the draft, but they tried to work together and do some extension talks. Those, for whatever reason, didn't happen. I don't know the specifics, but I'm not sure if it was just, mutual, hey, let's table it and talk about it later, or if it was negative, if talks fell apart or negotiations broke down. I don't know. But in any case, no extension was made, so those talks fell through for whatever reason. In my opinion, Justin Falk is a solid defenseman who makes the occasional mistake, much like Jake Gardiner, which we'll get into in a minute. But Justin Falk is, to preface what I'm about to say, I have to give you guys a little disclaimer. I've been a Carolina Hurricanes fan since 1997. I was a fan of the Hartford Whalers. And just for transparency's sake, I'm 28 years old. I was born in 1991, so I was a kid. So I didn't know, a super, super lot about hockey other than I'd been playing it since I was 5, and I really liked it. And the Whalers had cool jerseys. So there we go. When the Whalers moved, I followed them, and it was awesome because I live here in South Carolina, and I'm 4.5 hours just from Raleigh. So it was awesome because it was like, hey, my favorite team is now moving closer to me, so I can go to more of their games. Either way, that out of the way, I've been a Hurricanes fan since 1997. I've seen every up and down that this team has had that in their entire history of being Carolina Hurricanes. Justin Falk by no means belongs on the negative side of this team's history. In an era of the Ron Francis dealings and the Jim Rutherford stuff, Justin Falk, I would think, is one of the best things to come out of it. I, by no means, dislike Justin Falk in any way, shape, or form. He does things that frustrate me occasionally, but you could not meet a nicer guy. You couldn't talk to a more personable guy. He's obviously a leader in the locker room. Guys look up to him. He's put in a lot of work with this team, especially in an era in which mediocrity was the name of the game. I mean, we won the Stanley Cup in 2006, went to the playoffs in 2009, and then nothing until 2018, 2019. We've been on the cusp various times, and I know the contribution that Justin Falk has brought to this team. That being said, I don't believe Jake Gardiner was brought in with the intention of being a Justin Falk replacement, but Justin Falk at this point has become a bit of a redundancy. So let's break it down like this. In my opinion, Hurricanes defense, based on last season's regular season and postseason metrics, you're looking at Jacob Slavin and Dougie Hamilton being first pairing. That's kind of a given at this point. Second pairing is a little bit more up in the clouds. In my opinion, you're going to have Jake Gardiner on the left and Brett Pesce, who, thank God, is going to be able to be back on the right side. Brett Pesce will probably slot in on the second pairing right-hand side. The third pairing is where it gets really nebulous and foggy and crazy, and I don't know what to make of it yet. So we have Chase Priskie. We have Kyle Wood, who may or may not make the NHL roster. Alex Lintiniemi, who, again, may or may not make the roster. For brevity's sake, I'm just going to stick with the guys who I think have a better chance of making it. Jake/Josh Bean, according to Elite Prospects. Chase Priskie. Hayden Fleury. Trevor Van Riemsdyk. Justin Falk. 5 defensemen, 2 spots. Justin Falk is too good of a player to play on a third pairing. So, to me, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, once he heals up, depending on how his injury goes, once he heals up, we'll take that right-hand spot on the third pairing. The left-hand spot, or left side, I suppose, since we have a litany of right-handed defensemen, the left side third pairing will either be Hayden Fleury, Very, very, very possibly Roland McCune. I don't know if that's even a possibility, but very, very, very slight, if at all. Hayden Fleury, Roland McCune as a little honorable mention, I guess. Chase Prisky, Jake/Josh Bean. That sort of makes sense to me, and that's a very solid defensive lineup. I could see Hayden Fleury being the third pairing left side with Josh Bean as a 7th D, a healthy scratch in case of injury, or even Hayden Fleury on the right side, Josh Bean on the left on the third pairing until TVR heals up. All that being said, Justin Falk, unfortunately, has become a slight redundancy, and I hate that because I greatly enjoy having Justin Falk as a Carolina Hurricane. That being said, it would be very difficult to keep Justin Falk on and extend him for the price that I believe he thinks he should be getting paid. And he should be getting paid a reasonable amount of salary. I'm not saying, cut the guy's pay by $2 million or anything. But when we have players like Jacob Slavin signed to the deal that he's signed to, Britt Pesce signed to the deal that he signed to, now Jake Gardiner at an absolute steal of $4.05 million for 4 years, our defense is becoming cheaper due to Don Waddell and Tom Dundon working their various forms of wizardry. I don't see Justin Falk fitting in salary-wise and also depth-wise. He's a good player and we could use him, but offloading his salary in return for, in my opinion, a prospect or two and a second, maybe a third, depending on the prospect, depending on the team, sure. Prospects and picks. That would not only solve the salary cap issues that we have, but that would also free up space in a ridiculous defensive logjam, which, might I say, is damn refreshing because having followed this team since 1997, I don't believe I've ever seen, in the era of the salary cap, I don't believe I've ever seen the Carolina Hurricanes spend 2 or above the cap. So to me, this is refreshing. I'm over the moon. We have options for days. We have depth for days. We have, in my opinion, one of the best, if not the best, prospect pools in the entire league. If you would have told me about any of this 5 years ago, I would have laughed in your face for hours. That's just the state of the team at the time. We've come so far in such a little time that it's incredible. Like, to go from a decade of mediocrity to, hey, we're going to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Granted, they got swept, but that's Boston, and that's a whole nother story for another day. But still, Eastern Conference Finals out of nowhere, after sweeping the New York Islanders and beating the defending Stanley Cup champions in Game 7 of the first round. Thank you, Brock McGinn. It's just it's a great era to be a Hurricanes fan, and I figured, even though this channel is going to be about every team, every player, as objective as possible, what better way to kick off the channel than by doing a video with my favorite team, who just so happened to have signed the best defenseman on the free agency market at this point. And I know he's had a back injury, which I understand completely. Back injuries are tough. I would know. I had one in college that basically, we'll get into that in another time. It was a very serious back injury. I'm fine now. No super long-term damage other than a little pain here and there. But take it from me, back injuries are tough. They take a lot out of you, and they change you as a person for a long time. Everything you do is different. But just to touch on Jake Gardiner's stats a little bit, I've got the handy-dandy ramen notepad here. Oh, you can't see that. The light sucks. It's a notepad that looks like ramen noodles that I took notes about Jake Gardiner and his stats on. So if you guys see me looking off to the camera, that's why. I know I don't have a big whiteboard like the hockey guy. I'm not trying to be a hockey guy ripoff. I love his videos. He's actually one of the big reasons why I started making these videos, or I guess had the idea to start making these videos. Don't want to be a ripoff of him. Respect his work. Respect what he's doing. But for now, we have the ramen sticky notepad of notes. So 2015-2016, Jake Gardiner played 79 games and had 24 points. 7 of those points were goals. So, offensive defenseman. Yes, please. We need those. We love those here in Raleigh. I'm not sure if you guys knew. 2016-2017, 34 points in 82 games played. 9 of those were goals. So increase in point production, increase in goal production. We're all good, baby. 2017-2018, he had 47 points in 82 games played. 5 of those were goals. So increase in point production, decrease in goals. Perfectly fine with that. Don't care. You're a defenseman. Play defense. Great. 2018-2019 is where a lot of Leafs fans, well, 17-18 and 18-19 is where a lot of Leafs fans have issues with him. And I'm not going to get into the postseason stuff. That's for another video, because that in and of itself, we're already at 15 minutes or so. That in and of itself is going to be a 20-minute video. 2018-2019, he had 27 points in 62 games played, 20 games missed due to injury. 3 of those were goals. Again, I'm fine with those numbers. 27 points as a defenseman is not bad. Jake Gardiner is a power play quarterback. What is the big thing that the Hurricanes needed to work on and could have possibly even beaten the Boston Bruins by doing? Improving the power play. That's all. We just needed to improve the power play. And Jake Gardiner is going to do that. I'm book it. I don't normally do predictions super in advance like this. But you can book Jake Gardiner improving the power play almost immediately. That's how good this guy is on the power play. Now to get into sort of the issues that the Leafs fans have with Jake Gardiner. His giveaway takeaway ratio is unimpressive. In 2015-2016, he coughed up the puck 74 times, 33 takeaways. So not terrible, not great, but not terrible. In 2016-2017, 79 giveaways, but 44 takeaways. So little bit of increase in the giveaway department, but big increase in the takeaway department. Now is where stuff gets kind of ugly. And this is why Leafs fans are kind of like, hey, I know we really wanted him back, but now we don't want him back, and we're glad you have him. Giveaways, 105. 39 takeaways. I believe those numbers speak for themselves. 2018-2019, of course, over his 62 games played, he had 53 giveaways and 25 takeaways. So a much more reasonable number, or at least percentage, in 2018-2019. Granted, he played 20 less games, but I don't see him giving up 50-something more takeaways than that. Not to mention, Rod Brind'Amour is sort of like the best coach that Gardiner could have gone to sort of fix the mistakes that he makes. Not sure if you other NHL fans out here know, but Rod Brind'Amour is like the man you go to if you want to get effort out of your players. He squeezed, I believe it was either him or Justin Williams that referred to it as toothpaste, but he squeezed metaphorically every player for all of the energy and effort that they had in 2018-2019, and look where it got them. The Eastern Conference Finals of the Stanley Cup playoffs after missing the playoffs for a decade. So if I'm Jake Gardiner, that already is. I know the mistakes that I make. If I'm Jake Gardiner and I'm being paid millions of dollars to play hockey, and I've stuck around with the Toronto Maple Leafs for 8 years, I would imagine that I know a little bit about what I'm doing wrong. Yeah, Rod Brind'Amour is the guy to go to if you want to get yourself straightened out. And I get he could be kind of a risk because the way that salaries are structured nowadays, the later you get in your contract, the more your salary goes up. So that makes players a little bit harder to move, especially in 4-year deals right around year 3. Slight risk, huge reward, huge payoff if he can blossom into the player that I can see in watching his highlights and watching his previous play, and especially under Rod Brind'Amour. I see nothing but good times ahead. But that's just me. That's just opinion. If we're talking objectively, Jake Gardiner is a risk. $4.05 million is a steal for a player of this potential and a player of this caliber, but 4 years is pretty long considering he's had a back injury that I believe he has foregone surgery for. I can't remember. He may have had surgery on it. Don't hold me to it. I didn't look into it, so I'm not entirely sure, but we'll look into that. But yeah, I think on the whole, he's a great signing. Very unexpected. Did not expect that. So I was on Twitter, and it was like 10 minutes after they had posted that I had even saw the post, because I can't remember what I was doing. But I was bewildered, to say the least. I was not expecting that at all. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Hurricanes handle the roster going forward. So I guess that being said, let's talk just a little tiny bit, because I have to, about the Toronto Maple Leafs and their fans' reactions. Maple Leafs fans are some of the more critical fans in the league, and I get why. Toronto is long overdue for a Stanley Cup, especially now that they've got Austin Matthews and John Tavares and William Nylander and Mitch Marner about to be signed, I hope. I get why Toronto fans feel the way about him that they do. I get it. What I don't get is that a lot of them wanted him back. And when he signed in Carolina, they got upset, which I don't understand. I understand why they would be upset that he didn't come back to Toronto, but I don't understand where they're coming from at this point. I've seen various people from around the interwebs talk about how, hey, good luck having him in Carolina with that back injury. Hey, good luck having this $4 million for 4 years that now you have to worry about, the year after that, Sebastian Aho and Teuvo Teravainen, you're going to have to re-sign. So what's going to happen in 4 or 5 years? I don't get any of that. That's not only 4 or 5 years down the road, but why are the fans reacting to that? I don't get it. Like, that should be good news for you guys, so you should be happy, but I'm assuming it's just misplaced anger because they wanted him back. I don't know. And another thing too, Montreal Canadiens fans have had an odd interest in this whole situation. And I know that Montreal was reported to have a deal close to being done with him, or at least they were in on him at some point. And if you were to ask a Montreal Canadian fan, literally any one of them, at 10 a.m. the morning that Gardiner was signed, yeah, we really want him. He'd be a great addition. He'd be great. He underperformed in Toronto, but Montreal is just the environment for him. Not even an hour, 10 minutes after he was signed by Carolina, or at least when I had seen it, they were, good. They were right on the bandwagon of talking crap about him again, which, I mean, Toronto Maple Leafs fans have like a vested interest in this. Montreal doesn't really. They've gotten bamboozled by the Hurricanes 3 times this offseason, so I get it. But at the same time, we've been kind of telling you guys that Mark Bergevin is not the guy you think he is, I guess. With the whole Sebastian Aho offer sheet ordeal, he could have done better. I'm not going to get into that because if you follow me on Twitter, you know exactly what my feelings about that are. But he could have done better. And I don't know. I guess you guys are slowly coming around to, okay, well, that we'll just not worry about that. Toronto Maple Leafs fans, like I said, have a vested interest. He was initially their player. He had spent 8 years in Toronto. All of which I'm sure he loved, all of which I'm sure Toronto Maple Leafs fans, for the most part, loved having him there. But Montreal Canadiens fans, there are a few that I've talked to that are reasonable about it. And there are more than a few that I've talked to that are, not happy about anything the Hurricanes do these days, which, I don't know, that's fine with me, I guess. I'm not going to get into those anymore because I've had my fun with that. So I don't know. That being said, guys, not just Hurricanes fans, but hockey fans in general, what do you guys think about the Jake Gardiner signing? I personally love it. Who do you think is going to be moved, if anybody, from the Hurricanes? And if you are Don Waddell, what are you going to do to get the Hurricanes back down to an acceptable salary cap space situation? Like I said, I'm going to post the link to the Jake Gardiner article I wrote if you guys want to read it. The link to Cardiac Kane if you guys want to check us out. As well as the link to my Twitter page if you guys want to follow me. I'm way more active on Twitter than I am on any other social media. I have an Instagram, but I don't use it. But I think that'll about do it for this one. Thank you guys for sticking around this long, 20-something minutes. And hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys in the next one.